In today's episode of my podcast story, we have Nick Pavlidis. Nick's show is a treasure trove for aspiring writers and entrepreneurs, offering insights into the world of ghostwriting, publishing, and monetizing creative messages. After living a demanding career as a lawyer, Nick transformed his life by diving into ghostwriting, eventually building a network of 8 companies that empower creators and thought leaders. His journey from a high pressure law firm to a thriving entrepreneurial ecosystem is not just inspiring, it is a testament to the power of following one's passion. He's here to share his incredible story and the lessons he's learned along the way, showing us how to turn our dreams into reality through the art of storytelling and podcasting. Can you tell us your name, the name of your podcast, and what your podcast is about?
Sure. My name is Nick Pavlidis. I have a few podcasts. The one that's most relevant to me and active right now is called Get Paid to Write. And I help people become ghostwriters and I teach them how to become ghostwriters through that. And that came about, it was my fourth podcast. And it came about from a business I do. I'm a full-time ghostwriter. I own a publishing company, a bookstore, and a training course for people on how to become ghostwriters. But I knew that a lot of people don't learn through courses. Some people don't even learn through books, and they really want another way to be able to immerse themselves in helpful information. And so I committed myself, and podcast being um, a growing type of media, I said, you know what, I'm going to help get this information out as far and wide as I can. And so I started that podcast. I had some really good experiences with other podcasts, including one that I co-hosted with my two kids for more than 10
Wow.
years, from when they were 2 years old and 4 years old, all the way until they became 12 years old. So I have 260 something episodes of that with them. And it's just really, really cool. And that's really the podcast that most people more resonate with. It's called 5 Minutes with Dad. And I was talking with my wife about starting a podcast, and my son, who was 3.5 years old at the time, this is back in 2014, asked me, Dad, what's a podcast? And so I explained to him what a podcast was. I said, it's like a radio show, but on the computer. And just like a young 3-year-old would do, he asked, can I have one? And I said, ooh, sure,
Yeah.
why not, buddy? And so we started.
Wow. So if I heard you correctly, you've been podcasting from back in 2014.
Yes, yeah, and that was
Wow.
I started a relationship podcast called Confessions of a Terrible Husband in 2014, and then right after that came out, I launched 5 Minutes with Dad. I created a short run of podcasts for lawyers. I used to be a lawyer, and it's called the Attorney Marketing Institute podcast. And then now my main podcasting is for writers.
Yeah. Wow. I want us to step back a bit. Like, what was your very first podcast, which is 5 Minutes with Dad? Um, why did you start that podcast? What was the reason behind you starting that podcast?
Well, I was still a lawyer at the time before I became a ghostwriter, but I really was struggling with my family commitments. And so I committed myself to say yes to my family and to just do more with my kids and my wife. And so when I was talking with my wife about starting a podcast about relationships, and my son asked, can I have a podcast? What is a podcast? I thought to myself, "Oh, you're trying to say yes more. I know a pod imagine a 3-year-old and then my daughter who was not even who was 2 at the time, um, asked, "Can I have one too?" So we did one together. I just really wanted to I said, "You know what? As a lawyer, everything needs to be perfect. As a professional, everything needs to be, like, perfect, perfect, perfect. If there's a typo in a 200-page document that you send to the courthouse, everyone jumps on you and says, "Oh, this whole thing is terrible." And so I've been trained that everything needs to be perfectly planned, perfectly executed. I said, "You know what? I'm just going to say yes." And I just wanted to get better connections and say yes to family stuff and fill my schedule with important things rather than professional things.
Wow, wow. So the 5 Minutes with Dad, that the podcast is it still active?
We haven't recorded a podcast in about a year, partially because I didn't wanna put pressure on my kids to do it. I wanted it to make it something that they love to do, and my
Yeah.
daughter became the primary co-host with me later on. My son sort of grew out of it, and she's been really busy. She's been really busy in sports the last year and a half or 2 years, and so I didn't wanna put pressure on her for it, but she's so we have some recent episodes, but not for a while, but we may record some more episodes because she started expressing more interest in it too, so I,
Oh,
yeah, but we're still it's great. We still get listed on, top podcasts for kids.
yeah, yeah,
We're active, but we haven't recorded in it.
yeah. So it's kind of you guys are taking a break, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. What about the Confessions of a Terrible Husband? The title. I when you talk about having a descriptive podcast name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that show has not been active in quite a while. I think I recorded some episodes in 2020 or 2021. That really went crazy when I first launched it. I, uh, with I released some episodes in 2020 or 2021, but, I wanna say it got something like 500,000 downloads with just 40 something episodes. Like, it just really, really
Wow.
just caught on. And, I started it basically to encourage people. I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a counselor, a therapist.
Yeah.
I was just a guy trying to be more intentional in his relationship. And the big message was, if you can do everything, all the big things right. You can be kind, you can be gentle, you can be faithful. But if you do enough of the little things wrong, your relationship's gonna suffer. And so
Yeah.
it's not that I was a bad person. It's just I was terrible at being a husband. I was doing all the little things wrong. And so that's where Confessions of a Terrible Husband came from. And
Yeah.
so
I mean,
yeah.
it's a title that a lot of persons once they see they will resonate with. They're like, oh, I'm a terrible husband. I probably should listen to
Mhm.
it and see what this guy has to say about this husband of a thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I get a lot of people, even to this day, I get emails from people saying, "Hey, women, men, I started listening to your podcast because I was curious by the title, or I thought it was going to be sort of gossipy, or like watching a reality show, or hearing about these big problems. But then as I listened to it, I started realizing, oh, it really is simpler than that. And I recognized that I do a lot of the things that you talked about hurting your relationship. So you've made me a better wife, mother, father, husband. And of course, it's not me, it's them, but I help them make that connection, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like exciting because when you thought of starting a podcast, your idea was to start a relationship podcast, which is this Confession of a Terrible Husband, and that has not been active for like 2 3 years, and now you are still a podcaster, but the project you're working on has changed over time, and now you work on the Get Paid to Write.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
you talked about how I'm kind of curious. Out of curiosity, you have a podcast that teaches people how to ghostwrite. With the advent of AI, how has that industry kind of changed?
Yeah. AI has made high-end ghostwriting more valuable. It's really
Ooh,
impacted a lot of people who would go on to freelancer websites and just sell articles for $20. Partially because the types of people who would pay 25, 50, $75,000 for a book
yeah,
would not go to Fiverr or to freelancer.com or Upwork and just hire a random person. They want someone who there's too much on the line for those types of books. They want someone they can trust. They're concerned about protecting their own intellectual property and not inadvertently using someone else's intellectual property. Um, there's lots of um, there's lots of um, good uses for AI. We can use AI to check, hey, are there inconsistencies here? How's the flow in the book? So we can use it for ideas, but we don't typically. I haven't seen a lot of impact on ghostwriting at my level by AI. If anything, it it puts it's more it makes other writers up their game, which I think is great for the industry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just said let me ask that. Now for this
Yeah.
your most active podcast now so far, you from what you've said so far, I'm guessing you have three podcasts.
I have 4. Yeah, so I have,
Oh,
the Confessions of a Terrible Husband, 5 Minutes with Dad, Attorney Marketing Institute, where I teach lawyers how to market their practices, because that's one thing I really did well when I was a lawyer, and Get Paid to Write.
okay. The attorney marketing services, that one is active. Like, how recent
It's not
have you published
active.
an
I
episode?
haven't So basically, I recorded those as evergreen marketing content. How do you leverage conferences? How do you leverage
Oh,
social media? So it's almost like an online course in audio form for people, lawyers to listen to.
yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah, yeah. The thing about podcasting is you can basically use it, like you can use it. You are the chef, so you can basically use it to do whatever you want to do. You can
Yes.
be pretty
Yeah.
creative about it. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So
And then the other, so I have those 4 podcasts but I'm also the CEO of PodFest. So I run the world's largest independent podcasting conference. I'm the
what?
managing
Wait,
partner and
wait, wait,
CEO
wait,
of
wait, wait, wait. Are you kidding me right now?
No,
Wow.
I'm not. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
I'm deeply involved, and that's why I'm honored to be here with you for your show
Wow.
because I we help thousands of independent podcasters get started and grow through our online events and in-person events. And we have 50 events a year through PodFest. We do BidFest for video creators. We do monthly pod labs where it's all virtual and they're free and we teach people. And then we do a tour all around the United States and Canada mostly. It's called the Pod Tour. So if you go to podfestexpo.com, you can see a tab right at the top. It says Pod Tour, shows you where you can meet up with some of our team members. And we recently, as we're recording, we recently did I think 200 people, give or take, in the Philippines for PodFest Asia. And last September, we did one in Colombia country. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. I mean, the podcast thing is it's a community of people that it's just different compared to the other kinds of creators out there.
Yes.
Yeah, because the people in podcasting are pretty invested compared to all these TikTok, Instagram, and not to say that there's anything wrong with those platforms, but the creators are built different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So for the Get Paid to Write, you're active on YouTube too, or it's just audio?
So it's been audio traditionally, but I'm currently, as we're speaking, upgrading to be a video podcast or Get Paid
Oh,
to
oh.
Write. I may
So
even
so
rebrand it.
so when you say upgrading, can you help us the laymen understand what upgrading means?
Yeah. So part of the reason when I mentioned that Ghostwriter School or Attorney Marketing Institute and get some of the information out in different forms. I realize I've written more than 100 books. I've been on the USA Today bestsellers list 8 times, the Wall Street Journal bestsellers list 7 times. I've written some really successful books. I've had books translated into w- way over 20 languages. And um, one thing I realized is that if you have information that's important and you want to maximize your impact, creating it in a format that allows you to deliver it to as many people as possible um, is is very helpful. And so when I say upgrading, I don't necessarily mean video is better than audio. What I mean is I'm creating it in a format that has an additional layer that I can distribute it. So if I record it in audio, I can distribute it. I can put it on YouTube with an image, but there are people who like to learn on video. They like to see someone when they're speaking, even
Yeah,
if it's just a talking head. There are people who want to listen to audiobooks or to podcasts. There are people who want to read. And so what I work on doing is how can I record something at the most with the most layers? So I'll do a video and put the video of me just talking head. Maybe I'll have some slides or something to give an additional layer, or I'll pull up an example and share my screen if I'm talking about something I'm working on in my business. And so when I say upgrading, I don't necessarily mean better or worse. I just mean that I'm able to still record one time, but then distribute it in its natural form, different in more formats.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I understood what you meant, but I just wanted to clarify for those listening.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Most of YouTube has a pretty big audience, and as much as we're podcasters, I think the reason why we started the podcast is because we have a message to share with the world, and that comes first. So if it means we have to record video and put it on YouTube, so that more persons can get access to that message, I mean, I'm down for it too, as long as it gets people to see the message. So the message comes first, but podcasting is just one of those medium we chose to to send the message out to the world.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Um, Usually, pretty much when I have guests on my podcast, I like to have them start with, their kind of like moments when they had technical fails. And so far, the guests I've asked is just only one person has told me that she never had a time where she forgot to press record. So I'm going to ask you: have you ever had a time where you forgot to press record and you recorded an hour and only to realize that nothing was recording?
I haven't yet had that experience, but there was one time where I was recording a podcast all day, and I kept playing it back, and the sound was terrible. And this is years ago. This is 8, 9 years ago. All day. It took me 8 hours to record, and I just could not get my audio right. It sounded like I was in a can, like a tin can, and it was just not usable. And then I realized I forgot to turn on my microphone. So I was recording out of just the little laptop microphone.
Oh, oh, oh,
I could not
yeah,
figure it out.
yeah, yeah. Start wondering, say, what's going on? What happened? Say,
Yeah.
this stuff is supposed to sound like me, but why is it that I'm hearing
Exactly.
someone else speaking?
Yes, I'm like, "This microphone is so it sounds great, it's
Yeah,
expensive." It wasn't even that expensive, but it was a nice microphone.
yeah,
Yeah, and I'm like, "I just don't get it. I don't
yeah.
understand him." And I was, like, saying it was quiet and everything, so I was almost yelling into the microphone, not realizing that I forgot to click.
Nothing was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those days that you start preparing checklists and say once you set up like, did I do this? Did I do this? Sometimes it's a mental checklist, but it's just there like, oh, did I turn on the camera? Did I turn on the mic? Is this stuff recording? Is this thing working? Because and it's a terrible experience when you have a guest and imagine we've spoken for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and I'm like, I'm sorry, Nikki. Um, oh, I don't know why I keep calling you Nikki, but
It's fine. My mom calls me Nikki, so it's fine.
yeah. Uh, I'm sorry, for the past 30 minutes, we have not been recording. We would have to, like, it's as much as we would want to do a different interview, it just cannot be like the first interview because now we're like, "Ah, so I have to say that thing I said again. And now we're trying to force things that was natural at the first time into the conversation. And it's just way different.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much, um, some help. So a lot of it, like the technology you're using to record now, there's so much that helps make our jobs easier and foolproof sort of the recording process, now, and it's really, really cool. At PodFest, we have so many, sponsors and brands that come, and it's just I get to see stuff when it's one lady in her garage or in her house starting this software company to help podcasters, and then 3 years later, it grows to some big company. It's really, really fascinating how much help there is out there, for podcasters these days. But
Yeah, yeah.
back back in the day, it was we
Yeah.
pieced it together.
Yeah, I mean there was nothing like ChatGPT. If you were stuck, you have to comb through the internet, search Google to look for an answer. And then sometimes you see a forum where somebody asks the question that you're struggling with, and then only to see in the reply the person has he will put, oh, sorry guys, no need to bother. I just figured out the answer. And you're like and that was basically all you had. So if you're opportunity enough to talk to someone who was an expert, and that was it. But now with ChatGPT, you can basically ask, brainstorm, come up with ideas and all that. And for now, I think the biggest struggle with creating content is is us now. The mountain is us. It's no longer the tools, because the tools to create content is making it easier and easier and easier every day compared to
Yeah.
what it was like in 5, 8, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that because, a lot of people say, "Oh, everyone has a podcast," or they're so first of all, that's not true. The people who listen to podcasts or record podcasts, they get into that mindset where they're looking for things. But there is still it's still in high growth phase. Now, the statistics do show that a lot of people are consuming podcasts on video platforms. So it is
Yeah,
helpful to do that. But it's so important that there are people um, who live in all parts of the country, the world, that have really compelling personal stories, messages in their hearts, methods they can teach in their head, and being able to get that information uh, to the world is just so important. So that's one thing that just seeing all of the technology that makes podcasting affordable, that makes it easier, that makes it more impactful, is just it's just going to make it's just gonna make information from people more accessible and open up world markets to people
yeah, yeah.
never reach
I
it.
mean, one of the those people who listen to podcasts, the podcast they listen to is part of their routine, unlike other forms of content like YouTube, TikTok, and stuff like that. So usually when people listen to podcasts, maybe when they are cleaning or when they are going for their early morning jog or they're going to they're commuting to their workplace, they listen to a particular kind of podcast every day. And so for someone like, I'll give an example, like your podcast, Confession of a Terrible Husband. If someone was listening to your podcast, right? And the moment you stopped, what will happen is that they will have to look for another podcast like that kind of podcast to replace the podcast. So usually when people say that podcast market is crowded, I'm like compared to what? Like YouTube, YouTube, the market is so crowded. Yet people are starting YouTube channels today and they are still doing well on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing, like, if you're committed, and there are a lot of people who just aren't committed. They
Yeah,
create a show and they do a few episodes. Like, even Attorney Marketing Institute, it's got a couple dozen episodes. It was intended to be a a temporary thing, but there are a lot of shows that just ended or someone got started and they didn't have that commitment, but shows that stick around that are consistent, there are lots of different ways to monetize a show, even if you don't
yeah,
have a lot of listeners. I know someone who's made millions of dollars from shows where they just get a few hundred downloads an episode because of the niche target. They got the next step. It's not all about growing this huge audience. There are a lot of people who are making great money because of their shows, even if it's not necessarily from their shows, how people would traditionally think of it through advertising.
yeah, yeah. In a short while, we'll talk about monetization and how you're monetizing that. But I want to ask you a couple questions because you yeah, your story is peculiar because you are the CEO of PodFest. So the question I want to ask: did your podcast influence you getting the job as the CEO of PodFest?
Oh, 100%. I used to just go to PodFest and I became friends with Chris Kremitzos, who was the founder of PodFest, and he's still with us. He's in really more focused on community and marketing, and I'm focused on the business side of things and strategic partnerships. And um I became friends with him, and he loved 5 Minutes with Dad. So it was the 5 Minutes with Dad podcast that got me on his radar, and he's got 2 young girls, and, he loves kids podcasts, and we became friends. I sponsored some Podfest events. So I built that relationship, and then a couple years ago, when he was thinking about either selling the company or doing something different with it, he approached me and said, "Hey, I saw what you do in some of your other stuff. I don't know. Are you interested in buying Podfest?" And we ended up working together for a little bit. And what I tried to do is say, well, what if instead of me buying Podfest and taking it over, what if we tested? working together and maybe we'd grow PodFest. He's like, I think I brought it as far as I can take it. And so we worked together for one event and we liked working with each other. And so we partnered up moving forward. So without that PodFest number one, that podcast, especially 5 Minutes with Dad, number one, I would not have gone to the event. Number two,
Yeah.
I would not have such a heart for podcasting changed my life. Like the relationships I have with my kids because I podcasted, I have an audio journal of their entire childhood with us talking about important topics like leading by example and being brave and things like that. And so it changed my life. It got me to focus consistently on my family because we recorded episodes about important topics, told jokes, had fun. But then it also opened up doors for me to build relationships that led to the opportunity to be able to buy into and become the managing partner and CEO of the world's largest independent podcasting company.
Well, you talked about relationship, and it for me it's one of the I see podcasting as one of the cheat code of kind of building relationship, and I've talked about it countless times on previous episodes. I tell people that in a way, if you, let's say you're starting in an industry, let's say, I don't know, let's say you just starting as a lawyer in one small country like that, and you want to like build hey, just a quick break. If you enjoying the insights so far and want even more behind the scenes ideas, inspiration, and tools for growing your own podcast, join my email list at mypodcaststory.com/join. That is mypodcaststory.com/join. You get access to helpful resources, exclusive updates, and the kind of stuff I only share with my email subscribers. Whether you're starting out or already podcasting, there's something valuable waiting for you. Head over to mypodcaststory.com/join and subscribe. Now, back to the episode. Thought leadership and kind of like know the people in the industry. You just start a podcast and start interviewing, the people in the industry, like law, and start talking to them, all the people that, the movers and shakers in that industry. And what will happen is that even though you might not be getting a ton of listeners, what will happen is that you build relationship around those people. So when they mention your name, they're like, oh, I know that guy. Yeah, is that lawyer that has a podcast? Yeah, I talked to him for 1 hour. He has a great energy. He's a cool guy. And
Yeah.
before you know it, will open doors to a lot of opportunities. And yeah, I've had guests come on my show, and I know, like, in, I can't begin to list like incredible opportunities. And I want you to like kind of like go deeper into the. You talk about how you've used podcasting to kind of like document as audio journals for your um kids' life.
Yeah.
I love to for you to like tell me more about how that has worked out.
Yeah, I mean, even to this day, I'll listen back to a podcast episode when my daughter was 2 or 3 years old. We did our second episode was in 2014 on Mother's Day, and my son
Wow.
was 3.5 years old when we recorded it. I think we released it after he had already turned 4, but we recorded it, and he just sang this little silly Mother's Day song that he made up. And so even to this day, and it's gonna be Mother's Day as we're recording pretty soon, and even to this day, every year when I get reminded of Mother's Day, I go back and I listen to him sing that silly song, Mother's Day, Mother's Day. And, so it's great to just go back. And then there's an episode where I talked with my daughter about how does she know, like, how to find a husband and so she asked about my wife and me, and then she talked about how she's gonna find a husband who's very polite and says, "Excuse me." And it's just the cutest little things that they and so I listen back to for those moments, those silly moments that come up. The other thing is there's lots of really cool stories where we talk about when I mentioned earlier, leading by example, and how that looks like in our life. And my daughter was running a race with her cousin. Her cousin did not want to run. My daughter was standing next to her, and when they said go, my daughter didn't say, "Come on, run." She just ran. And what happened? Her cousin ran after her. And so I said, and my daughter finished second, and my niece finished third. And so we had an episode where we talked about, or maybe my niece finished fourth, but we had an episode where we talked about it. And I said, that's called leading by example. You didn't tell her to run, you just ran. And then what did she do? She was inspired. She ran too. And so we've had these really great teachable moments. Number one. Number two, it focused me on looking at our life differently, looking at our day to day differently. When I knew we were going to record a podcast about something like leading by example, I'd look for these moments in my life and relate them to really good, you know, parenting principles or self help or personal growth. And so it got me to focus a little bit on that. So I have this audio journal where I get to listen to these stories from our life and how they relate to it, and then I get to listen to my kids. And we still to this day have these jokes where my son said, "Oh, my sister likes eating snacks," and so he did it in this weird voice. And even to this day, 15 and 13 years old, well, I'll turn to my daughter and say, "You gonna eat chips? You gonna eat every snack?" And that's exactly how he said it on the show. She eats
Yeah.
chips, eats every snack, and so it's just, it's really something that I'm just so, so, so excited that I have done. It's this journal of our life with them, and it's so easy to listen to. If it were on a video camera, a video recording, or even a video on my cell phone, to go back and watch, I wouldn't necessarily do it as much, but I'm in the car, it's on all the audio platforms, I can just hit Spotify or hit, iHeartRadio or whatever it is, and just I can even ask my car, the smart car or whatever, feature to say, "Hey, play a podcast, 5 Minutes with Dad podcast," and it'll just play a random episode, so
Yeah, like for of all the benefits of podcasting, this is really one of the peculiar ones. Like I mean, you got to share and got to document, and it's kind of like a way to like think of a way to like pause and reflect on what's happening, and go back and listen and say, okay, oh, this stuff I learned stuff. You understand? Because the world is moving pretty much so fast that people don't even have time to pause and say, okay, what's going on, what's happening.
yep. Yeah, I mean, we go through life, um, sort of just getting through the day, but when
Yeah,
you're podcasting, especially if you're podcast with purpose, right? And it doesn't mean you need to be donating money to charity, but just some sort of purpose, some passion, something you're driven to learn or driven to teach or driven to explore. For me, that 5 Minutes with Dad, it made me look at my life through the lens of role model and through the lens of looking for teachable lessons, even where I would tell my kids a story about something that happened at work and I was really struggling and it was really, it was really challenging, and I and it just made me look at my life differently. But if you're just exploring like the law where you interview lawyers, you're going to look at the world on how can I use this information to help in my business, to help there. And being a podcaster, they say the best way to learn is to teach. If someone tells you, "Hey, I need you to do a
yeah,
30-minute presentation," the fact that you're going to talk about it or interview someone about it or whatever forces you, if it's important, it forces you to do it. If you have a fitness podcast, you're likely going to eat better and you're going to exercise more. So,
yeah.
uh, there's so many ways your life can benefit and have that return on investment. Just can get your life can be brighter. You can make money from it, but you can really get those intangible benefits by committing to leading a conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing those two benefits, that how podcasting has built your relationship and how the relationship even led to this job you currently holding. And I know that apart from this relationship you had with the founder of PodFest, I know there are other relationships podcasting has kind of opened you to. That without podcasting you would never had those access to such relationships.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
There's been lots of those relationships in
Uh,
different places, personal and professional.
Can you you gave us one about Podfest. Can you like share one or two more, so just so the listeners can get to double down on the idea of how podcasting can open them to stronger, better network.
Yeah. So apart from PodFest, a mentor of mine I met through through his podcast. He was a gentleman named Dan Miller. He wrote a book called 48 Days to the Work You Love, and he had a podcast. He passed away in early 2024.
Oh,
But what he did was he used to host events and he would talk about his events. He'd share a lot of information on his podcast and then he'd host events. And I decided one day to go to one of his events, and that built a real deep relationship for more than 10 years. I met him in May of 2020 2013, and then he passed away in January of 2024, and I became really, really close with not just him, but his family, and that relationship, I was in a mastermind group with him that he started, that relationship led to I could trace more than half of my business, uh, in my ghostwriting business back to my relationship with him. So you teach content, you build relationships, but then you invite people to engage with you in other ways. In his case, it was events. It could be join my email list and communicate with them through a newsletter. It could be both. And you build these relationships because you have this intimacy with people who who put you in their ear and put their earbuds in their ears. And they may be paying half attention walking around their house, but you are the noise of their life. And if it's
Yeah.
pleasant, you can build a deep relationship. So that's one example of how podcast that, "Hey, if you wanna build this type of business," it was a coaching business, "Why don't you come?" And it was $1,000 or I forget what it was, $500, $1,000. You spend 2 days on my property with me, and a group of people, and we learn. And that event changed my life. The other thing in with me directly is I've had people join coaching programs, buy courses from from my podcast that led to relationships. There's a person who used to listen to the Get Paid to Write podcast. She joined a course I created called Ghostwriter School, and then now she has become a really successful ghostwriter, and we share, collaborate, and it's really enhanced the efficiency, the growth, a whole bunch about my business. I mean, I could go on and on about all
Yeah.
these different people. Like I also own a book publishing company, and I met the author, or the founder of that company through my mentor's podcast. So it's not even just direct connection, but it's, hey, you get on a podcast as a guest, or you host your own podcast, and you build relationships with hosts like yourself. You might be talking to someone 2 weeks from now, and they mention a book. Say, "Hey, I interviewed a guy who runs PodFest. He actually owns a
Yeah.
ghostwriting agency," and so you build that network, and you plant the seeds, and if you're consistent, things come up in conversation that, um, it's very hard to predict, but it's one of those people who are consistent with recording or guesting on podcasts. It's so funny how many times you hear them say, "Out of the blue, I got this phone call," or "Out of the blue, I got this referral." It's not out of the
Yeah.
blue. You do that because you're consistent and you're helpful.
Yeah. 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 Thank you so much for sharing those relationship stories. Um, your get one thing I've noticed is that for all your the four out of the four podcasts you started, you had a different clear cut reason and purpose for each of the podcasts. I mean, the Anthony Marketing Institute podcast, that one was for, should I want to create a collection of evergreen audio so that people can know the lessons I know on about marketing your attorney services, right? And then you started 5 minutes with that. The reason was quite different. It was, okay, how can I create a deeper interaction with my daughter, but then document it and then share it with the world. And then so the reasons were different. So for me, I want to know about the get paid to write, right? I want to know what was
Yeah.
the real reason you started that podcast, get this podcast, get paid, which is like the current podcast you're working on now, get paid to write.
Yeah. Yeah, so initially it was launched to start building attention for the course Ghostwriter School that I run,
Oh,
um,
oh,
in some ways, right? So I built that up. I wanted to teach them, but there's only so far you can go with audio. This was audio. It still is for now. Audio. Um, I don't really hold back information. I teach them how to find clients. I teach them how to write, but I have templates, I have forms, there's I go deeper in the course. And so I wanted to get people enough information that they can get started even if they don't have a budget. Because I didn't get started with a big budget. I didn't even know how to build a ghostwriting business. And when I started ghostwriting, I had a mentor, but the mentor just answered a few questions for me. Like there really wasn't good information out there on how to make it a successful business. And so I wanted to create the podcast, the information that I wish I had. So in that podcast is more information than even Ghostwriter School when it first came out in 2020. There's probably more information in the podcast than there was the entire Ghostwriter School. I've added to Ghostwriter School, included a whole bunch of different things in it now, but there's a lot of great information that you can actually use with just I've had people tell me, just listened to the podcast and I grew a ghostwriting business." And then they said, "Now I wanna buy Ghostwriter School." And part of the reason I said, "Well, why do you wanna buy it?" Part of the reason is to say thank you, is to say,
Yeah.
I'm making money from this, and I wanna thank you, but
Yeah.
if you're giving away that for free, imagine what's in the
You
course."
paid,
And
yeah.
yeah, and then the second reason I wanted to start it is because I do have a Facebook group called Ghostwriter Growth. There's like 12,000 people, 11,000 people in there. And I wanted to create an engagement circle where there's the Facebook group, the podcast, and the course that all sort of interact with each other. And so people will ask questions on the group, in the group, and I use that as content for the podcast. So someone will say, "Hey, does anyone know how to find clients? I live very rural. I don't live in a big city. How am I going to be able to find ghostwriting clients?" And if I were to write out that answer, it would help one person. It might help them.
Yeah.
It might take a while to formulate it, but I could just record a podcast episode, how to find clients no matter where you live in the world, and then just respond a few weeks later, say, "Hey, I recorded a podcast episode for this." And that person felt so special because they are, and because their question created this podcast, other people got to learn from it. And I'd say, "Hey, share your wins." And people would share their wins. I'd have 5 people saying, "Oh, I just got a new client. I just handed in a chapter. I just launched my website." And so I would take the podcast episode and I would say, "Hey, I'm going to talk about success stories from the ghostwriter growth community. Sally says she just launched her website. Congratulations. Now let me tell you a little bit about websites." So I would use that as content uh, points, content sort of kicking off points. But I would have people in the Facebook group saying, "Don't you just love when Nick mentions your name on the podcast?" And then people from the podcast would say, "Oh, I got to find the group. That's where he gets his
Yeah.
questions." So I
Yeah.
created this circle of engagement there.
Ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of looking back at the reason now, and Get Paid to Write has been running for how many years now?
It's been running since 2020. I
Okay.
haven't I took a pause sort of on updating it a little bit, maybe 2019, on updating it a little bit as I built out, 'cause I bought a couple of small businesses, and then I started a couple of other significant projects.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and now I'm revamping it, and I may launch it just as the Ghostwriter School podcast. So if someone's
Wow.
looking for Get Paid to Write, they might just get the Ghostwriter School podcast.
Wow. Oh, it's so how well would you say this podcasting has, because you started the podcast. I would love to call this podcast a business podcast. You know, it's kind of like you have a business and then you started a podcast for the business to kind of like help
Yes.
your your potential clients and customers better. And how well would you say this podcasting as a marketing channel? How well is it doing for your business? I mean, you're providing valuable content, but in terms of marketing, like how well is it doing?
Oh, it's done well in a number of ways. Like number one, when I ghostwrite differently, I don't charge for words. I charge for the value that I add connected to
Yeah,
the
the
number
project.
one mistake. Right. And so people make a lot of mistakes when writing a book, but the biggest mistake they make is not that they don't write a good book, it's they write the wrong book. And if you write the wrong book, the worst thing
Oh,
that can happen is for it to be successful because then you're going to get the wrong attention. And so I tell these people like, "Listen, you can find words cheaper than me. ChatGPT can write words,
yeah,
but ChatGPT is not gonna give you help guide you to writing the right book. It might try, but you don't even know what questions to ask many times. And um, so there are a lot of people who wanted to hire me or were talking with me and other people, and my approach is differently. So the higher end people where I'm like, "Listen, I'm gonna help you avoid writing the wrong book." And then there's other mistakes that I help with. But then, um there are times where people say, "Oh, wow, you literally teach ghostwriters how to become ghostwriters?" So the fact that I am leading the conversation on how to become ghostwriters, I there are other
yeah,
people with ghostwriting courses, but I've had hundreds of people go through my course. I've helped thousands of people through the podcast and the community and everything like that. People feel very comfortable that, "Hey, this is the guy who's literally teaching people. He's leading the conversation on how to write a book." So I've
yeah,
landed ghostwriting clients because of my Get Paid to Write, um, podcast. But I also get a lot of people into ghostwriter school because I will promote my enrollment periods on the Get Paid to Write podcast when I do that. There are a lot of people who started the podcast and then end up in ghostwriter school because they're like, "I get it. I just wanted this more organized." Because the podcast is episodic, which it's not. Here's episode 1 is the place to start, then episode 2, then episode 3. All the information's there, but it's in pieces all over the place a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, I want a more systematized or more organized approach, so I'm gonna join the course." So I've had people join the course from the podcast. I've had people deepen relationships through the podcast. I've landed ghostwriting clients because of the podcast. And I've landed ghostwriting clients because of 5 Minutes with Dad too. People they just enjoy the relationship between me and my kids. And then I've had ghostwriting clients listen to 5 Minutes with Dad and say, like, my kids love your podcast. And I've had two people tell me when they were going through divorces or post divorces that they're ghostwriting clients of mine, that their kids they listen to my 5 Minutes with Dad on repeat throughout the day just to hear
Wow.
the engagement, a father figure in their house.
Wow. Wow.
In tears, they say this to me.
Wow. I mean, usually they'll say people do business with those they know, like, and trust. But I mean, this story you just shared is what they meant when they said people do business with those they know, like, and trust.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 100%. And I don't remember, and I don't believe it was a my kid likes your show, I'm gonna hire you. But
No, no, no.
two
It was
people
more
who
like,
told me that.
yeah.
Yeah,
It was more like, yeah, I like this guy. What does he do? Oh, he's into ghostwriting. Oh, yeah, I kind of, it's more like you when you have a friend that you trust and like, and like, okay, the guy is a plumber. Okay, yeah, yeah, my pipe is leaking. Let me call him. You understand? It's not
exactly.
necessarily the
Yeah,
fact, you understand. It's more like I like him. I trust him. That I like his energy. So let him do the stuff. Yeah. Wow.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Something a question I want to ask, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing, you can just let me know, and we'll just proceed and jump the question and move on to the next question. Is currently the way what you described, it sounds like podcasting is a really powerful feature, marketing channel that has helped build your authority as an authority figure in the space of ghostwriting, and also help you close clients, and amongst many other benefits, right? So for those who are just listening, who I would love for you to, like, if you can, if probably maybe share with us what's the average download look like, so that people can understand what it means to. Yeah, I don't know if you understand what the question is.
The average downloads?
Yeah, something like that. Just
Yeah.
podcasting is one of those secret stuff that if the host does not tell you anything, you are not going to know what's going on.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I haven't checked the downloads. I just opened it
Wow,
up on a new screen to see if I could check. I don't check my downloads. I've
wow,
never like maybe I've checked them in a while. It looks like 5 Minutes with Dad has been downloaded 500,000 times.
wow.
Um, looks like my latest episode was 14,000, then 6,000, then 10,000, then 7,000, then 9,000
That's
that I see
get
in
paid to
here.
write.
No, this is 5 Minutes with Dad. Get
Okay,
Paid to
okay.
Write is I don't think there's a lot of downloads. Get Paid to Write, unique downloads, 26,000. Um,
Wow.
and there's 71 episodes. I don't see the individual episode downloads. I don't know that maybe I have a lower yeah, it looks like I average 65 downloads a day on that now. I'm just looking back, but I don't see where
Wow.
it says how many. So it's not a ton of downloads. Stats, let me stat.
I mean,
Latest, yeah.
it's a lot. Wow, it's a lot. 26,000. That's I'm trying to imagine the capacity of, you said unique download, so that means unique different like the capacity of a place that has 26,000 persons. Like if you're called to speak for such event, that would be a huge event for the
Oh,
speaker.
of course, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's since I started it, right? So, but and then if I look at Confessions of a Terrible Husband, I just click on unique, and I don't know what the unique Libsyn unique algorithm. Um, Confessions of a Terrible Husband unique downloads 467,000, and
Wow.
then that's across all episodes. But I don't think I have like I definitely don't have the highest sort of stat. I just keep the episodes live. But then,
Yeah.
Attorney Marketing Institute, 17 episodes, and it's 19,927 unique.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty niche podcast compared
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the 5 minutes with dad. That is basically, everybody that is a parent that that has kids. And
Yeah.
that's the audience is different compared to like lawyers that want to like learn about marketing for their firm. Wow,
Yeah.
thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing the downloads and sharing your story. And yeah, I feel privileged to interview you. Like, yeah, so I'm gonna put, yeah, I interviewed the CEO of PodFest.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Hey, it's my pleasure, man. I'm honored to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
here.
Before I'm trying to like quickly round up everything. You told me you had a call on the hour. What's the last question I'm going to ask you is what's one final word of advice that you have for podcasters out there, whether they're beginners or they've been doing it, or wherever they are. What do you have for them?
Uh, get started before you think you're ready.
Okay.
It's if you're not embarrassed, I forget who said this. It wasn't it's not original, but if you're not embarrassed by how your first 5 episodes sound, you waited way, way, way too long. Just get started. And you know what? You're going to mess up. You're going to forget to hit record. You're going to forget to turn on your microphone. And it's way, way better. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm going to build up an audience and then I'm going to podcast, or I'm not ready. I need the perfect setup. No, just get a microphone, plug it into the side of your computer, grab Audacity for free, hit record, start with audio, just put it up there. Doesn't matter. You don't need fancy music. You don't need anything. Just get started, have a conversation with people, invite people. You can use, there's lots of great, if you do want to invest 20, 30, 40, $50, $100 a month, you can certainly do that and up your game, so to speak, but get started before you think you're ready and, make all the mistakes when fewer people are watching.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Where can listeners learn more about you, your podcast, and what you do?
Well, for this podcast, for your audience, I'd love to see everyone here at PodFest. If you go to
Wow.
podfestexpo.com, we travel around the country. You'll see where we are in the US and Canada. Um, and then we have a Facebook group for PodFest. I'm active in that Facebook group, so you can go in there and tag me, Nick Pavlidis. It's the PodFest Facebook group, and I don't know, we have several thousand people in there, but we haven't really tried to grow it, which is kind of cool because there's like 8,000 people or something who just went there without any promotion, and so it's really, really cool place. So if you go on Facebook, you'll see me in there. PodFest Facebook.
Okay. Okay. So if you want to for check out what it does, Podface, and but they can also message you on LinkedIn, and yeah, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. I'm just going to ask this now that I have you on the podcast. Um, do you guys have any plans to come to Africa, Nigeria, the other continents other than US and Canada? US and Canada.
Uh, Plans, not so much, but desires, yes. We were talking with a group who does events in Africa, in South Africa, I believe. Um, and so we've been eyeing. We would love to get on the ground in other continents. In Africa, we know there's a lot of great podcasters there. The logistics are challenging to us, so we do have the
Oh,
desire to do it.
okay. The will
So
is there,
we've
but
been,
you just need
oh
someone
yeah,
to like handle the logistics, and then you guys will show up.
yeah, yeah, and we need to there's lots of details to work out, but we definitely would love to do something there. We do a lot virtually so we can reach people. We have an AI summit that's coming in a couple of weeks as we're recording, that's virtual. And so yeah, absolutely, would love to expand our reach.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nikki. That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.